Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to do another video about the Canon EOS R3. It's been a good month or so since I last did a video about the R3, and in that time we've actually started to get a little bit more information now about what this camera will do, what it's capable of, and some of those main selling points that were kind of a little bit unclear until now. Getting information about just what the R3 will have in it has been a slow and sometimes painful process, as Canon have teased content and information out little by little, or should that be leak by leak, because a lot of this stuff seems to be coming online before it is actually confirmed by Canon themselves. However, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe just over a week ago, an email dropped into my inbox that had the subject title that instantly caught my eye and got me quite excited again, and that was Canon R3 specs confirmed. Unsurprisingly, there's still some details that we don't know even at this point. Some of them are quite fundamental, such as price and release date. Others relate to the functionality of the camera itself. And I think Canon have really got to be careful to strike the balance between building up excitement and delaying, and just getting it out there so people can budget and start to make plans for whether they'll buy this camera or not. There's a few signs on social media that people are getting a little bit tired now of this slow drip, drip, drip release of information by Canon about the R3. A quick recap then before we get into new information. What we did already know is that this mirrorless camera, I think Canon described it as being aimed at professionals and also serious advanced amateurs. It's also going to shoot at 30 frames per second. It's going to have an integrated grip, and the shape of the camera is going to be more aligned to kind of the Canon 1DX range. The R3 is not going to be a flagship model. There have been speculation whether it will replace a 1DX Mark III or whether it'll even be the flagship within a mirrorless range for Canon. Neither of those are the case. The 1DX Mark III remains a flagship body at this point in time, and even post the release of the R3. And there will also be an additional R3 body that comes out above the R3. Sorry, an additional mirrorless body that comes out above the R3 in due course as well. And that's almost certainly going to be the R1, although we haven't had confirmation of that just yet. The R3 is also going to have eye control autofocus, technology that was first seen way back in the 90s and then pretty much shelved, and it's now been rebuilt from the ground up by Canon for this specific body. So if you're active on social media and YouTube, you will have seen that certain influencers or Canon ambassadors have already started to, I won't say get their hands on the R3, but they've got a pre-production model that they've been able to go and see, even though they're not allowed to touch it or turn it on. And the early signs are the R3 is looking as beautiful as we thought it would. In addition, there has been some photographs released by Canon that show other angles of the body, which we'll come to in just a minute, but that also starts to really get us excited about this camera, and that it is looking every bit as good as we hoped with those initial photographs released a couple of months ago. So what we do know is the R3 pretty much seems to take its design features from the R5 and the 1DX Mark III, in some ways taking the best of both of those cameras and putting it into this body. It's really exciting, it looks great, and we're pretty excited to see the final result. So what do we know that is new on the Canon R3 that Canon have confirmed? Well, let's start with the magnesium alloy body itself and that rubber grip that looks so beautiful. That is going to have the same weather and dust resistance properties as the 1DX Mark III, and that is going to make this the most protected Canon mirrorless camera that the brand have released to date. Next up, let's talk about that beautiful image of the back of the camera, the reverse of the body that Canon have released in the last couple of weeks. And what this shows is that enormous eye cup, and this could be where some of that new technology around the eye control autofocus is going to be housed. What we do know is Sony's pretty much out in front in terms of viewfinder technology on mirrorless cameras. So this giant kind of eye cup that you see might be where some of that technology is going to be housed to try and bring it into line with those incredibly high standards the Sony mirrorless cameras have already set. Something else we can take from those images is that there is no lower display like you see on the 1DX Mark III, and in fact the 1D range has had that lower display since at least the 1D Mark IV, possibly the 1D Mark III, I can't quite remember, but the lower display on these bigger bodies has been there for some time. I've never used it on my trusty 1.4 to be honest, don't know how popular it is with other photographers, but it's not going to be on the R3. Next thing we can see is that glorious big screen, and that is an articulated display on the back of the R3, which twists out, spins around, and lets you view the live view from pretty much any angle. We have seen this actually on Canon cameras before. The 80D was a good example of that. And that's actually what a lot of video makers are now looking at. Certainly if you're in the realms of doing YouTube videos and vlogging and all that, that reverse articulated screen that lets you sit in front of the camera and see perfectly how that shot is composed, much like I'm doing here, is really popular. So the R3 will have that big articulated screen, and look at the size of that thing. Looks beautiful. Next, look at the top of the camera, and this is another photo Canon have released, and it is the new accessory shoe. From what we understand, this is going to have both communication and power functionality. So that means a whole new line of accessories are likely to be introduced by Canon that can run off the top of that hot shoe right there. And that obviously opens up the possibility of plugging things in like microphones, so that if you are running a microphone, all of that information and power is passed through the hot shoe rather than having wires dangled through. I haven't yet seen anything about the new accessory range, but it's exciting. It's much more similar to what Sony do, again, with their mirrorless cameras. So well worth us keeping an eye on that and see what Canon have in store for us on that front. Something else we didn't see in the photos, but we do from the information Canon have released, and that is quite exciting if you're a motorsport photographer, or you like taking photos of motorbikes or off-roading or whatever that may be, and that is there's a new autofocus tracking mechanism, if you want, for want of a better term, in this camera, and that is for motorbikes and cars, motorsport. So that is going to be really interesting. I don't think we're talking cycling here. It is specifically those fast-moving, big, bulky motorbikes and cars. So again, if you're a motor racing photographer, this could be a really helpful tool and autofocus tracking for you to use. Battery, not incredibly exciting, but we have learned it's going to use the LPE19 battery. This is the same one that is used in the Canon 1DX Mark III. That suggests that the R3 is certainly going to be hungry for battery power, and so it is also an advantage if you own a 1DX Mark III and you plan to get the R3, that you can interchange those batteries freely. In terms of memory card slot, it is going to have a SD card slot and an CF Express slot, so it's dual slot. So the ports on the side of the R3 are going to be as follows. They will be a microphone port, headphone port, USB, HDMI, flash sync, Ethernet port, and it's also going to have 5 gigahertz of Wi-Fi functionality in as well. So that answers some of the questions I had in the last video around connectivity. There's a great array of options now confirmed for the R3. Video is going to be a huge selling point of this camera, despite the fact that it's so seemingly packed towards sports photographers. Video is going to be 4K oversampled, Canon Log 3 or C-Log 3, and it will also shoot internal raw video. So if you're a video maker, a lot of really good specs there for you to sink your teeth into. 30 frames per second, we know about that already. We now know that 30 frames per second will include RAW with AF and AE tracking. Also new for the R3, when we talk about the sensor, it is a full frame stacked BSI sensor, and this is much more similar to what Sony use in their A1, A9 and A9 II, for example. So there we go, very quick roundup of what we know. I'm going to put some links to Canon in the description below, just so you can hop off and read a little bit more about that if you want to. I purposely haven't gone into a ton of detail on some of this because it's covered in such depth elsewhere. However, if there is a specific part of the Canon R3 specs you'd like me to delve into, please let me know, drop me a comment below and I'll happily upload a video of it. As I mentioned at the outset, there are still so many questions left unanswered about the R3, and it is becoming a little bit tiring because we have no idea when we are going to get answers about these different things. So for example, when we talk about the 4K oversample video, what type of oversampling are we talking about? Canon, I think themselves view 2 or 3 types in different bodies. What is the R3 going to use? What's the resolution? What's the frame rate? Never mind the bigger questions like when is this thing going to be released to the public? When can I buy it? And also, what is the cost going to be? I'm sticking to my estimation from a video I did, I think 2 months ago. I reckon this is going to be priced at around £5,000 here in the UK, probably 5,900, 6,000 US dollars, I expect, but we are purely speculating based on looking at prices of other Canon cameras at this point. So that's it. That's what's new on the R3. Please drop comments. If you like the video, I'd really appreciate a like just to help my channel continue to grow. I've had loads of new subscribers over the last few weeks, which has been great to see. Please continue to subscribe and like. It's a great help to me. and let's look forward to what we see next with the R3. Thank you for watching.